Amen. Okay. Yes, we have a baby shower sprinkle. They call it a sprinkle. Is that what that's called? We have a baby shower right in the annex. So look, it's going to be, just please stop by the annex before you leave and come love on some people, get some refreshments, hang out, bless the Peck family. We love you guys, and we're just excited, man. Baby's coming in October. Are you excited? Okay. She's like, no, it's hot, and I'm ready for baby to come now. So we love you guys. So there's going to be a baby shower over there right after service. So we look forward to having everybody over there and talking with them and loving on them. All right. Whew. So, yeah, just one last thing, man. We had Praise in the Park last night, and, man, what a good time. We had a lot of people just kind of show up and trickle in. And I'm telling you, we were talking about canceling that on Monday because we were watching the storms. And they're like, it's going to thunderstorm all day on Saturday. And we're like, So we just hold out. And I was like, we'll wait till Wednesday. And then we're like, we'll wait till Thursday. And they said, we'll wait till Friday. And they said, let's just wait till Saturday. So I'm watching on Saturday, and I'm like, this ain't looking good. Like 6:30, 7:30, it looks like it's going to be a straight up downpour. But we didn't cancel, and we just went out and immediately started praying over that. And we're standing there, and I'm talking to my wife, who is still at the house. And she's like, I can't even see. It's raining so hard. And I'm like, well, it's sunny down here. I was like, we're just praying, and we just commanded it. We literally sat there commanding stuff, and you could see lightning in the distance, and we're like, and it was all dark, and all of a sudden it just went whew, light, and then right at the very end, the sun comes popping out, and I'm like, whatever. I was like, don't sweat the small stuff. Right? Don't sweat the small stuff. I think that's, and that's huge, because I believe that what I heard last night during this whole thing is that Yahweh wants to flip the script. He wants to change some things, right? And he was doing that last night, kind of like showing me once again, all the stuff he's doing. And I was like, man, this is so good. And it ties right into transformation. We're in a series on transformation. About how we're being transformed, right? This is all about digging in deeper with him and allowing him to transform you, but it's not from something you actually don't know. Like we were designed, we were created with a blueprint. God created us with a blueprint. He said in heaven, he goes, man, I'm going to design you and create you. This is what you're going to do. And then, right, then we dealt with the whole Adam thing, right? And then so you get separated from your blueprint, and he's like, I need to transform you back into your original design, right? And that's, up here is a caterpillar to a butterfly. That caterpillar was actually designed to be a butterfly. And that caterpillar does not work really hard to become a butterfly. It literally lives its life, right, and walks in its purpose, and next thing you know, it turns into a butterfly. But with that, it changes everything. We've been talking about this point of view. It changes how you see things, how you do things. But it just happens. So the reason why I tell you that is a lot of people go, yeah, man, I really want to, get into church, but I don't have time for all that stuff. I don't have time to add it. I'm like, you don't really need time. You just need to let him do what he wants to do inside of you and let that transform you. You don't have to earn that stuff, man. That stuff he just gives you. And when you submit to him and you feel the love he has for you, it starts transforming you from the inside out. But what you do need in all that stuff is faith. That's the key, right? And that's the one that gets everybody, is having the faith to believe that it's going to happen. But yeah, the word I got last night is that he's going to flip the script, and he said he's about to reverse the usual. He's going to do something unexpected, right? And then so when you hear those things, and I had to write that down because I need to keep going back to it. When you hear those things, now comes what we talk about is believing, right? Is expecting it now. If he's going to do something that looks completely different than what it actually looks like, then we need to be ready for it. And we need to just expect it to come, right? Now with that comes the faith and not giving up and not folding, throwing in the towel, not doing those things, but actually riding it out, riding out the storm, riding out what doesn't feel right. Does that make sense? Kind of ties right into that, the picture that was drawn in the prophetic thing that was done on Tuesday night was ride it out. Like, ride it out. He's going to do something. And what it took me back to, which ties into what Maymay was saying, was Isaiah 43. So I'm going to go to Isaiah 43, 15 through 19. I'm going to read in the NLT. So Isaiah 43, 15 through 19. It'll be on the screen if you don't have your Bibles. If you have them, I'll hear you flipping the pages. Thank you, Carmen. That's a journal. But I'd rather you take notes. I'm good. Yeah. So Isaiah 43, it says, I am the Lord your Holy One, Israel's creator and king. I am the Lord who opened a way through the waters, making a dry path through the sea. I called forth a mighty army out of Egypt with all its chariots and horses. I drew them beneath the waves, and they drowned their lives. And they drowned, their lives snuffed out like a smoldering candle wick. But forget all that. It's nothing compared to what I'm about to do. For I'm about to do something new. See, I've already begun. Do you not see it? I will make a pathway through the wilderness. I will create rivers in the dry wasteland. Come on, it's easy to read the Bible, read the stories, go to the end of the book, and then have faith for people, right? And go, just hang in there, guys. We know how it ends. When you're in the middle of it, you have no clue how it ends. You have one person to listen to, one person to trust, faith to believe, and then ride it out, right? Because I guarantee you, if I was in the middle of this, you got to think about that, man. The Israelites, they were happy but not happy, right? They were slaves, but they were being fed. They were being taken care of, right? But they were working their tails off. So when Moses says it's time to roll, they're going with them, but they're not. They're like, and it proves it because through the story they do what? They wander in the wilderness, but through the story, what do? They tell them, I wish we were back there in slavery, in bondage. At least we were being fed. And even though God said, I'm going to bring you manna to eat, he goes, but just eat enough for today. Trust me that tomorrow I'm going to bring you more. He goes, just eat for what's today. Don't store it up. You don't have to store it up. I'm going to take care of it, right? So when I read that story and I see that, I'm like, man, this is so good because God has always showed up. God has always shown out. He'll always do what he says he's going to do. But sometimes it's not our timing. I mean, I'm telling you, people started talking this morning in worship, and I'm like, well, okay, Lord, I guess this is where we're going to go. But I love the fact that he shows you what he's done, but doesn't tell you what he's going to do, right? He says, if I could free them, if I could bring the entire army after them, if they could you imagine standing there at the river's edge going, now what? Like, we can't cross, right? We can't get into the water. We're cornered. You're mad. They're yelling. They're screaming. They're probably crying. And he just says, well, just let me part the sea, right? What are you guys worried about? But see, what's impossible to us, well, we can't see in the natural realm, in the spiritual realm, he is on target all the time. He's moving, he's grooving, he's flowing, everything's happening. We can't see it physically, so we go crazy. We can't see it, so we start worrying about stuff. We can't see it, so if we can't see it or hear it, right, if it's not tied to our senses, then we lose faith. And he says, you need to hang in because I'm the only one you need to trust. Yeah. Trust in the Holy Spirit, not what you see, think, feel, all those other things, right? Trust in the Spirit. That's it. Jesus said, I have to leave so the Spirit will come and teach you and train you in everything. So if that's who's supposed to show me everything and teach me everything, then I better be in tune with the one that's going to do that. If not, I'm just living on somebody else's dream. And once again, I'm not here to believe like somebody else, to think like somebody else, to do what somebody else did. I'm here to pioneer. I'm here to do what he tells me to do, right? And we have to do that by walking in faith. I'm telling you, if he can split the sea, he'll do it again. So I got to believe that with everything, a lot of people here know everything our church has been through. I'm talking everything. I've been in this church for 14 years, so I can go back 14 years. And I can talk about everything at the church. Some people can go back to March of this year. And that's everything to some people, right? Some of us can go further than that. So, but I've been through a lot. And as I was trying to review this weekend, because I really felt, and I got to share with somebody that came talk to me this week, and I got to share kind of our history and what we've been through, and it just opened my heart, man. I was like, man, there is so much that God has done. Like, he just keeps stepping up. But when you think that it's done, he just steps up and does what he wants to do. And I was like, man, how good is it to remember? How good is it to reflect back and go, man, look what he's done. And if he did it once, he'll do it again, right? Because we haven't changed. I haven't changed. I've been watching him show up for 10 straight years since I've been on staff. All right, for 10 straight years, I watch him show up. Every time there seems to be a storm, he just says, man, just don't worry about it. And he shows up. So in all that reflecting, I went back to my very favorite story in the Bible. And I just feel like I'm supposed to read it. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to reflect on everything that's ever happened in this family. So if you've never heard all this stuff, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to tell you about the miracles. I'm going to tell you about what he's done to show up the way he has, to hopefully give you an idea of the proof that it's kind of like reading the Bible when you go, oh my gosh, could you imagine what it would have been like if you had split the sea and we were there and we got to walk across? Well, there's a lot of stuff he's done in this family that I got to walk across. And I got to be present in it. And because of that, I'm filled with faith. Because of that, I can walk strong when things come at us. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes in our life. Sometimes we got to see it to believe it. Well, I'm going to show it to you today. I'm going to talk to you about it today so you can actually hear that. But it took me back to my favorite story, and it's a long one, but I love it because it's talking about flipping the script and changing things and believing in somebody and something that's not supposed to do what he does. And it's a simple story about David and Goliath, and I love it. I love it. It's like my favorite story in the Bible, and I try to stay away from it because I could get dug into it just because of how good it is. But I'm going to read through it, and I only stop a couple times, but I just believe I'm supposed to read it so you guys can hear it. If you hadn't heard it in a while, you get to hear it with my voice, in my emphasis, and how I see things through it. So 1 Samuel 17, I'm going to start in verse 4 through 51. So if you haven't read all that before in church, we're doing it today. It says, then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet and a bronze coat of mail, weighted 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leg armor. He carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was as heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. His armor bearer walked ahead of him carrying a shield. That's pretty intense right there. When I read that, I go, could you imagine that? 9 feet tall. And he's decked out. Like, I don't know, man. If I was 9 feet tall and the biggest guy in the room, I don't know if I'm going to wear armor. So obviously he's lacking a little faith already. Like, that's the first thing I see. Because if you're the biggest guy in the room, you're kind of walking around like the biggest guy in the room. I've never been the biggest guy in the room, but I see them walk around. And they look pretty bold. They look pretty confident in who they are. He's not doing that. Sounds like he is, but he put on all this gear. It says, Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. Why are you all coming out to fight? He called. I am the Philistine champion, but you are only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me. When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. Man, he comes out and he just speaks some words. The entire army is shaken. Saul, their leader, is shaken. Once again, you shake hard enough, if you hang in there, there's going to be a breakthrough. But they're scared. They're done. This guy's just speaking words because, they don't want to be their slaves. They've been in battles and all this stuff, and they don't want to come under their rule. And I know that's their Goliath, but what's your Goliath? What is it that's been speaking to you? What is it that you've had dreams of doing, God told you to do, and somebody's standing there telling you can't do it? In fact, I'll whoop you if you try. I mean, this is an easy message right there. But we back down out of fear, out of anxiety, out of worry, out of not knowing what comes in the end, and we don't walk out in faith and believe that he has our backs, right? So some of you are sitting here with a Goliath, and I'm speaking to you even though I'm talking about this. What Yahweh asked you to do that you chose not to do because you just didn't think it sounded right? And then somebody came and told you just can't do it. So now David was the son of a man named Jesse, an Ephrathite from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. Jesse was an old man at the time. He had 8 sons. Jesse's 3 oldest sons, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shimei, had already joined Saul's army to fight the Philistines. David was the youngest son. David's 3 oldest brothers stayed with Saul's army, but David went back and forth so he could help his father with the sheep in Bethlehem. All right, so you get a good view of David, but before this, if you go back, David has already been anointed as king. He was only like 15 when that happened, right? And he wasn't supposed to be. He wasn't the biggest, the strongest, the tallest. He wasn't a warrior. He's not the one that's signing up for the army. None of that stuff. He was the least of these, and he was already anointed king. But he's a shepherd boy, right? He's in the field doing what he knows. Even after he was anointed king, it didn't change what he thought about himself to everybody else. But to him, he knew his identity. Come on, I'm telling you, this is going to go right into what I'm talking about. Once he was anointed and told who he was, and he understood who he was, he didn't have to prove it to anybody at that point. In fact, he just went off in the wilderness and started talking to Daddy. And he said, now I know who I am. And now I'm going to operate differently. Now I'm going to be different. I might look like a shepherd boy, but inside I know who I am. I'm a king. Not only am I a king, I'm a son of a king. And this is what he knew. So he's about 16, right? He's only about 16. And he's going back, taking care of the sheep, bringing food to his brothers. He's not doing what a king does, right? But in his heart, he's doing everything he needs to do. So he's going out there and, taking care of his brothers, doing what his dad says. But he's a different person. He's a different person from when he was in the field before. Now he's been anointed. Now he's been called. Now he knows who he is. So for 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistine champion strutted in front of the Israelite army. One day, Jesse said to David, take this basket of roasted grain, these 10 loaves of bread, and carry them quickly to your brothers. And give these 10 cuts of cheese to their captain. See how your brothers are getting along, and bring back a report on how they are doing. David's brothers were with Saul in the Israelite army at the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. So David left the sheep with another shepherd and set out early the next morning with the gifts, as Jesse had directed him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelite army was leaving for the battlefield with shouts and battle cries. So see, the Israelite army is still leaving the battlefield with shouts and battle cries. But they get to the battle and they back down every time. So it's like they're getting, all fired up at home, but then when they get to and they actually face the giant, they back down. Soon the Israelite and Philistine forces stood facing each other, army against army. David left his things with the keeper of supplies and hurried out to the ranks to greet his brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks. Then David heard him shout his usual taunt to the army of Israel. He's been doing that, 40 days? I think is what it says. It's a big number, 40. He's been doing it for 40 days. As soon as the Israelite army saw him, they began to run away in fright. Have you seen the giant? The men asked. He comes out each day to defy Israel. The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who kills him. He will give that man one of his daughters for a wife, and the man's entire family will be exempt from paying taxes. David asked the soldiers standing nearby, what will a man get for killing the Philistine and ending his defiance of Israel? Who is this pagan Philistine anyway, that he's allowed to defy the armies of a living God? There's just something there about David that he understands. He knows who he is. That's why they say he's got the heart for the Father. I mean, this guy literally like plays the harp with the sheep. He's not a warrior, right? He's not doing a battle cry. He's not running around thinking he's the best thing ever. He goes, tends to the sheep, plays the harp. He's a tough dude. 16 years old. 16 years old. Living in identity, trusting in what the Father already said. I don't know, if I'm him, I'm thinking this. The way I think is, well, if you said I was going to be king, then I'm not going to die. Think about that. Because if I'm not king yet, then I ain't going to die. So what do I have to worry about this giant for? Because if you showed me I was going to be king, I got to believe in that because you showed it to me. You anointed me, so I'm not going to be worried about a giant. Because he can't do anything with me. That's why we sing that song, he cuts off a giant's head. Right? I just think he's living differently. I think he's at peace. He shows up and he's like, what? Kill him. It's not even a thought in his mind that he could die. Because he already seen what he's going to be. There's a faith level there, y'all. There's a faith level there. And these men gave David the same reply. They said, yes, that is the reward for killing him. But when David's oldest brother Eliab heard David talking to the men, he was angry. What are you doing around here anyway? He demanded. What about those few sheep you were supposed to be taking care of? Now it's a few sheep. He's going to downplay him. I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. Now he starts calling them prideful. There's a difference between being prideful and knowing who you are. I can know who I am and I can know whose I am and I can walk around with my chest held high, my chin up, and not worry about anything. I'm not prideful. I just know who I am, right? And I'm not going to be scared of this and that and that and this and that because I know who I am and I know the authority I have. That's not pride. That's understanding who you are. That's being grounded in who you are. That's knowing your identity, right? It's not prideful. He's just like, whatever. Like, you just don't know what I know. And if you did, you guys wouldn't be running from these guys. What have I done now? David replied. I was only asking a question. He walked over to some of the others and asked them the same thing and received the same answer. Then David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him. Don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go fight him. So now you got a 16-year-old looking at a king who was a pretty big guy, right? And he was a pretty powerful guy, and he fought a lot of battles. This guy was, and you got a 16-year-old dude looking him in the eye going, don't worry about it, man, I'll kill him. Think about this, man. We got little Robert up here. I know he's back helping the kids this morning. I want to brag on this kid, man. He was out here yesterday. He showed up and helped me load everything up for Praise in the Park. He went down there. He was walking Blakely around on her scooter the whole time. He was hanging out with the other teens. And then he came back before he left and said, hey, man, can I help you? And I said, no, I got it. All right. Now he's back with the kids serving. But I think about Robert. Like, Robert's about this tall. He's 16. You know, I don't know how tall he's 16. He's kind of short. But I see Robert walking up just going, don't worry, man, I got him. And Saul going, okay, whatever. I got a whole army out there. Like all your brothers are bigger than you and they're out there, right? So I just can imagine the conversation. And I know it says Saul, replies. He says, don't be ridiculous. It's the first thing out of it. Don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. It says you're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since his youth. I love it when someone tells you can't do something. But David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I've done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. So he's not a trained soldier. He has not been through basic training. He literally is in the field, and guess what? A lion and a bear come at him. He taught himself to grab him by the jaw. He wasn't scared because guess what? I'm going to be a king. And he clubs them, right? He finds a way to win. Finds a way to win because he's not intimidated because he has faith. Because he knows what's been spoken over his life. Complete faith. Nothing's going to bother him. The Lord, who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear, will rescue me from the Philistine. Saul finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. That sounds very much like go ahead and do it. But do you remember the deal that Goliath made? He says, if I beat him, you're slaves to us. This wasn't just like, if you lose, we'll send somebody else. He looked at a 16-year-old kid and he said, go fight for all of Israel. Because if you lose, we're all dying and we're going to be slaves to these guys forever. It's a little bigger than just go get in a fight and I've got your backup in the corner. There's no backup. Like King Saul is like, I'm done, I'm scared, I'm tired. Our guys won't even fight him. If this is the last straw, then well, okay, have fun. Go get him. I don't know if I could do that with Robert. He's a nice kid. I'm sure he'd fight hard. Then Saul gave David his own armor, a bronze helmet and a coat of mail. David put it on, strapped the sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. I can't go in these, he protested to Saul. I'm not used to them, so David took them off again. Isn't it funny that when it's time to go do something, everybody wants to give you advice, and everybody's going to tell you how they did it and what needs to be done? He says, wear my armor. Come on, man. This is David and Saul. There is no way that's supposed to fit. And David's like, I can't even do it your way. Like the Lord gave me a way. The Lord taught me how to fight the lion and the bear. I don't need you. I don't need your ideas. I don't need your thoughts. I don't need the next best scheme on how to do things. I don't need to do it like the guy down the road did it, because you got a whole army that you've trained up in one way to do things, and nothing's happening.
There it is.
Nothing's happening. And he's like, how about I do something different? And he's not scared, but Saul's scared. I'll get bold, and I'm not here to offend anybody. All the time. There are a lot of churches out there that refuse to break away from the norm of everything because they're afraid and because it pays the bills. So they're going to stick with everything that everybody else has been doing for so long because people get used to it. And if they can come in and get their, an hour and 15 minute, hour and a half service, go home, check it off the list. The church is like, I don't care. As long as they come in and they give, we're good.
That's right.
Can I tell you, I don't care if you give. I don't care. Right? I want something different. We need to be different. You're not going to get different if you don't try something different. Right? And because if with all the churches, come on, man, there's a lot of churches in Alabama. Like a lot. There's like 3 on this corner. You would think with that many churches, funneling that many people, that things would be completely different in Alabama. Things would be different in the world. Think about all the churches in the world. But can I tell you, just from I'll peel back the curtain for you. There's a theory and a method to everything you do in ministry. When you come into ministry, they tell you how to do it so that you please everybody. Because if you keep everybody happy, they'll come to church. Coming to church is great, but if you're just coming to church to be a consumer and sit in a seat and not know who you are and not go out and change the world because the church is supposed to go out and do something, you're just wasting your time. I'm not saying it's bad. People get saved in those churches. Lives get changed. I got saved in a church that was 3 songs and out and move on and logistically get you out so I can get the next big crowd in, then get them out so I can get the next crowd in. And I got saved there, but I couldn't grow there. I got saved there and stayed there. And some people are good with that. I'm not. I know what he's called me to do. I know what I'm called to do, and I can't do that in a normal place. Therefore, sometimes you got to say, Saul, have your armor. I don't want to wear what you wear. I don't even know what it feels like. So take it back. But he did have a way of doing things. So verse 40 says he picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them into his shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with a shepherd's staff and a sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. Goliath walked out towards David with his shield bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. Am I a dog, he roared at David, that you come at me with a stick? And he cursed David by the names of his gods. Come over here and I'll give your flesh to the birds and wild animals, Goliath yelled. David replied to the Philistine, you come at me with a sword and spear and javelin, but I come at you in the name of the Lord's heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. So today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. He said, the Lord will conquer you. I'll kill you and cut off your head, but the Lord will conquer you because I'm fighting for him, and he's fighting through me, right? And he's not a soldier. He doesn't go to war. He doesn't know what it's like to go hand-to-hand combat. Man, this guy's been taking on a bear and a lion. They don't even have thumbs. Just different, right? But he says, I'm going to take them on. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. You understand that the Lord, and when Jesus came, he didn't have a sword, a spear, or anything. The Lord doesn't need it. Jesus didn't need it. He conquered people with love. Can you believe that? Now, granted, I know David's not coming into this thing with a whole bunch of love. But he knows he's loved. He knows who loves him. He understands who's behind him and who will never fail. Right? As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. Then David ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from his sheath. David used it to kill him and cut off his head. He didn't even use his own sword. He went at the obstacle, defeated the obstacle, used its weapon against himself. He said, I'll just use your sword. I don't even have one. He didn't know how to wield a sword. He picked up 5 stones, only needed one. I'm just letting you know that the 5 smooth stones, that's my fantasy football team name, so nobody can take it. Just letting you know. That one's called. But here's the thing. If you didn't know how the story ended and you were living it, what are you thinking? The only one I can see in this whole story that had any faith at all was David. Everybody else saw it from a different perspective. David had a different point of view. He was at a different point to view the entire thing. He was already nestled in the lap of the Father. He was already in full relationship with him. He was already communing with him. He already knew who he was. He knew his identity. So when he was looking at it, it was just another day. He's like, is this what's stopping us? Like, let's go. Like, what's your problem? Like, hey, are we having praise in the park? The storm's coming. It's just a storm. Just show up. We'll just tell it to leave. Right, Carmen? She says, what was your comment yesterday? She's like, what if I get hit by lightning?
Yeah.
And who's going to do what? Who's going to revive you? And I said, don't worry. I trust my faith. Right? I said, don't question my faith. Question yours. I'll revive you. Don't worry about it. Just keep playing. Like, I got you. Like, I'm just saying, y'all, it's a different mindset, okay? We can't look at the storm the same way. But I love the fact that he would use somebody so not set for the whole thing. right? He wasn't a soldier, none of that stuff. He wasn't even the best looking or the biggest or the tallest, none of that stuff. But God says, I'm going to use you, and if you trust me, this is going to be good. If you have faith, this is going to happen. Can I tell you the same thing happened in this family? The same things happened in this church, right? So I just want to fill you in on everything we've been through so you can see why I can stand up here on a Sunday morning and go, just have faith. Because I've always had faith, and he's always showed out every step of the way. He's always been there. We just need to remember how faithful he is. So we can't get caught up in the circumstances. We can't get caught. Even look, let's start with today. I can't get caught up with the fact the air conditioner doesn't work. And we don't have $9,200 in the bank to pay for it. It is what it is. Lord, if you want us to go outside and sit under a tent, we'll do it. I'm okay with that. I really am. Like, I'm good with it. You know, I simply prayed over it, called the air conditioning guy, and I said, hey, man, I need you to work a miracle. And he goes, I don't work miracles, Jesus does. I said, well, the same power that resurrected him from the dead is in you, so you work miracles. He goes, well, whatever you say. And I was like, I'm saying it. Like, go fix it, you know? And when he came over, he goes, well, this thing's 20 years old. He goes, I'm not going to get that compressor. I said, just check, you know? And he found one, and he could piece it together, right? So same concept, though, right? I'm not going to back down just because of these little things that happen in the midst of everything else going on. So I want to go back. I'm going to go back and share some stuff. For those that know it, great. For those that don't, great. But the whole point is to show you a different perspective of why I see from a different point of view. Okay, and I think that's important because as we walk through this, it's shaking. And a lot of people are going, man, why are you starting an academy right now? You know, I talked to my trustees, and they believe in this. But if you're a trustee in here, it's because you understand finances. This is not the time you open a business. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not a time to open business. But when God says open a business, you just open it, whatever. Like, I'm going to have faith, and I'm going to walk out in what you want me to do. All right? And they're on board because they understand. Okay, but we've been through this. I've been in this church 14 years. In 14 years, I'm the fourth pastor. I've been the senior pastor for 4 years. I didn't start this church. 5 years. I've been the pastor for 5 years now, over 5 years. I hope I can remember all these stories. I can't remember how long I've been a pastor. But you know what? I didn't start the church. The pastor that did, he resigned because of his own reasons. Right? And then another pastor took over. We had the largest church in the area. We were pushing 2,500 people. We had a big campus, $3.5 million. We were paying $27,000 a month on a mortgage. Y'all, if I can justify spending $27,000 to have a building, something's wrong. Amen. When we have a city that people are hungry and people need help, and come on now, that just blows my mind. That was it. But when I came, so 14 years ago, we came to that church. 10 years ago, I was asked to come on staff. I was in the military. I was asked to come on staff. I was teaching leadership, finances, all that stuff. And trust me, I was not trained in ministry. This was not an idea of mine. I was good being a shepherd boy, going hunting. I was really good with that. This was not what I wanted to do. I warned them not to bring me on staff. But the Lord said, do it. So I came on staff, retired, came on staff. Like I said, I was over the finances. At that point, we were bringing in about $1.6 million a year as a church. But we had a lot of bills. We had over 30 child care employees, over 10 paid staff members. And we were in the red so bad it was unbelievable. Couldn't pay the bills, couldn't fix the church, couldn't do anything. Because when the pastor left, who started the church, half the church left. And the church that was left holding the bag was like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, you can't afford anything. And when you put me in charge of finances, I'm pretty cut and dry. If it costs money, get rid of it. And that's what I did. Came in and we started getting rid of some stuff. Shut down the daycare because that was in the red. I fought starting a daycare for so long. If Yahweh didn't say start a daycare and an academy, I wouldn't be doing it. Because I watched that thing go up and people owed $5,000 and $6,000 thinking it's just a church so we don't have to pay. And we let them stay there. That ain't happening, by the way. We ain't doing that. We don't play that game. Right? But here's the thing. We owed all that money. We couldn't afford to be there. The first thing I did was contacted the AG Financial that owned the mortgage on the building. I said, we owe $3.5 million and I can't pay $27,000 a month in a mortgage. And they said, okay, do me a favor. We're going to send in a consultant. If you'll let the consultant speak to you and work with you for a year, he'll show you how to raise money in a church. Right there, if that doesn't just crinkle your toes. Raise money in a church? Like I need to raise money? Okay. And he goes, if you can do that, this guy will help you get the money back and we'll reduce your mortgage throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, your mortgage will be back to $27,000, but hopefully you have enough money to pay it and everything's good. If not, we'll take the deed in lieu of foreclosure. We'll just take the deed back and take the church. And I said, well, if you do that, I'll give you an entire church. Like I want somebody to be able to walk in here as a church family and have everything. Equipment, chairs, computers, sound, lights, toys, everything. That's what God said to do. And I said, I'll honor it. A year went by. We couldn't afford it. For 6 to 9 months, I searched for a place. In that year, I was already searching, trying to find a location that at that point we could fit about 1,000 people. You know how many churches are available to fit 1,000 people? You know how many buildings were available? Like 2. And they were $1+ million and above, but they were shells. And you'd have had to build it out. I was going everywhere. I'm like, there's nothing, Lord. What are we going to do? Because they're like, if you can't be, you're out by December. They go, the end of December, you have to be out of the church building. And I'm like, talk about being backed into a corner, y'all. And I just kept praying, Lord, you're going to have a way. Because if this is what you want to happen, then you're going to make it happen. Right? At the same time, we had a front lot in front of the church that we owed about $180,000 on. And it was a piece of property in front of the church. We used it for parking. That was financed through an individual, not a bank, but an individual. We were trying to sell it because if we sold that, we needed that money, not to pay the mortgage, but because when I came on staff, I found out that the church had not paid payroll taxes in years, and we owed the IRS $260,000. So I walked into a stack of IRS paperwork that said, you owe us money. So I called them immediately, and I was like, I don't even know what this is, but what can I do to make it better? And they said, well, you can pay a small fee, and we'll keep your tab going, and we'll figure it out. And I said, well, let's sell the front lot. If we sell the front lot, we can pay the taxes to pay off everything we need with the IRS, so they'll leave us alone. That's why I had to sell the front lot. So I put the front lot up for sale, had a realtor with it. I'm still back down because we're running out of time, y'all. Like the clock is ticking. Every day is another day that I know we're not going to make it. And in the end of November, I'm driving into work, stressed out. I'm working harder than I've ever worked before, even in the military. My family's like, I don't know why you're in ministry. This is ridiculous. Like you are literally at the church all the time and you're stressed out. And I'm like, I know. I didn't know what I know now, but I know. On the way into work, the Lord tells me, fire the realtor. I'm good with that. Like he hadn't done nothing. I got no numbers, nothing, right? So on the way in, I go, fine, I'm going to call him and fire him. And he said, no, fire him in person. I was like, great. That's what I really want to do. I'm really a nice guy. So I call him up and I go, hey, man, meet me in my office if you can. He goes, I'll be there. I show up, he's there. He walked in. I said, you're fired. And he was like, huh? It was like one of those Trump shows. He was like, what? And I said, man, I explained to him, you have not done any of this stuff. And I need information. We got to sell it, so I'm going to fire you. He started backpedaling. Cut a bunch of costs. Now he started cutting percentages and everything. And in my mind, I'm doing the math, and I'm like, and man, I'm going to have to hire another realtor or this guy's cutting the costs already. So I'm thinking, all right, sure. I said, I'll sign with you again, but you're going to do this, 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 and this, and you're going to reduce all the percentages, and we're going to sell the property. And he's like, yeah. And I signed the paperwork. As soon as I signed the paperwork, the guy looks at me and goes, do you know anybody looking for a church? Ain't even lying. He didn't get out of the seat. He goes, you know somebody looking for a church? And I go, absolutely. How big is it? Because I've seen some small churches. And he showed us this church that had just went on the market that week. Journey had it. Fresh Rain was in it. They grew in this church and went and built a church. And Journey's like, we're going to sell it. And I'm like, well, when are they out of there? And he goes, they got to be out by the end of December. Well, we got to be in by the end of December. The only thing I had to do was, once again, climb the mountain. Journey wants to sell it. We ain't got no money. So what's the next step? I don't even know the pastor at Journey. So I call up, I need to speak to your pastor. And I go over and meet Mike Mazingo, phenomenal guy. Meet Mike. Share the vision of, this is what's going on. This is what we need to do. He goes, I'll talk to my trustees and get back to us. And when they get back to us, I wrote down on a piece of paper the amount of money we could afford for rent. At the time, it was $7,500. Complete transparency. $27,000, $7,500. Mike, we can do $7,500. I didn't tell him. I just walked in with it on a piece of paper, and he sat down at a table, and they were like, look, man, the only way we can do this, he goes, we're going to need at least $7,500 a month. I'm like, good. Sounds good to me. Like, let's roll. When can we start? And I said, oh, by the way, we got no money. We had $0. Nothing. We didn't know how we were going to pay payroll. We didn't know how we were going to do anything. I was like, so we got $0. I said, I'm going to need the first week. If you'll just let us have service the first week, Mike, I'll give you the money. And he agreed. So we signed a lease. We did service over there, like Christmas service. And then the next service we did over here. 1 week later, we moved an entire church, which wasn't that hard because we left everything, right? And we walked into nothing. And we honored that. I fought Mama Low tooth and nail. She's like, bring this, bring that. Everybody, the whole staff was like, we need to take this. We need to take our desk. And I'm like, nothing. We leave everything. I said, do you guys not understand the blessing that's happening right now? We're getting out of a mortgage. We're getting into a building. We don't need it. I've got a fold-up table from my house and a fold-up chair and put it in the office. And Pastor Rick did the same thing. You know, we sat in that office on our little chairs and we said, let's figure this thing out, right? But God showed up. God showed up. Here's what else you don't know. While we were over there, one of the other expenses I walked into, other than the front lot. So here's one, that front lot we need to sell because the IRS is on our butt. Couldn't sell it. I finally find the guy that owns it. I'm like, you want your lot back? Because I can't pay $1,500 a month. He was like, yeah, I'll take it back. I'm like, done. I was like, we couldn't even afford $1,500 a month. He took the lot back. Great. And now it's some kind of auto shop. I don't know. Cleared that one off. We move over here. IRS shows up. They're like, hey, man, are you the same church that's over there? We actually weren't. At the time they showed up, we had got out of the denomination, so we're no longer part of that denomination. We were non-denominational. So we did change our entity, federal ID number. But I told the IRS lady, I'm like, we are that church. We have a different name, but we moved from there to here, and I'm still making payments. I said, we're doing everything we're supposed to do. And she's like, are you hearing me? Are you the same church? And I'm like, we are the same church. Are you hearing me? And she goes, what's your tax ID number? And I showed it to her, and she goes, that's not the same church. I was like, no, we are the same church. And she goes, okay. And she left. Then we got a letter in the mail that said the IRS forgave us for everything we ever did. Look, y'all, like, I can't make this stuff up. Like, this is what, like, we did, and we did everything right, by the book. We didn't hide anything, all right? Look, if you don't think we were stupid over there, you want to talk about money? We paid $4,000 a month for a printer. to print paper so that everybody in the sanctuary, when they showed up, would get a little flyer and they could write in there and fill out the blanks. So we paid $4,000 a month for a printer to do that, under a lease that we couldn't get out of for 3 years. I don't even know that sunk in. That's a lot, y'all. That's a lot of money to spend on a printer. Does that make sense to anybody? So I called them, and they restructured it, gave us a smaller printer. Then I called them and said, I don't even want the smaller printer. Like, we don't need this, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, we can't have it. And they literally wrote us a letter, and in the mail we got a letter that said that we don't even want your printer. Like, it's done. Like, paid for. I'm like, only God. Like, I don't understand these things. Like, only God, right? So we've been backed up. We've walked through some stuff to get from there to here, right? From there to here. But then God started playing with this, right? And then he started walking around this going, okay, let me show you some stuff. He started showing me visions. I'm not even the pastor. I'm walking around. I'm just the executive guy. I'm walking around and he's showing me visions of a school and showing me visions of equipping centers and showing me land. We were renting this. We still couldn't afford to buy it, right? They wanted $799,000 to buy this building. Ken remembers all this because he was part of the whole thing. And we're like, what are we going to do? Well, we need to buy it because the rent kept going up. We couldn't afford it. I'm like, man, if we could rent this, if we could buy this thing, we'd drop it down in half, right? We're like, let's do this. So we finally talked to a bank that would talk to us because they knew we were the old church. And I was like, just let me prove to you we're not the old church. Like, we're different. And we showed them all the numbers and everything, and they finally said, well, we could do it, but you're going to have to come up with some money. Well, here's the problem. We had to come up with money to buy this thing, but in the meantime, the Lord was working on me and said, you need to go buy the property behind you. And I'm laying on my face going, what? Like, we got to buy a building. And he goes, go buy the property. I mean, we had a parking problem here. You understand, when we came over here, we were running 3 services and people were sitting in the foyers. And this place was jammed. There was no room up here. We had chairs all the way up. Chairs were bunched together. There was no spaces. And we were running 3 services over here. But then everybody trickled off because that was, I think, too much. A lot of people in a space all the time. But anyway, I'm laying on my face and he says, we need to buy the property. I think I'm the pastor at this time. However things played out. Now I'm the pastor. So this was like 5 years ago. And I talked to the guy that owns it, and he wants to sell the property. It's attached to the building next door and that, but that actually helped because that building was going to have 4 rentals, and it was going to pay the mortgage, and financially it made sense. And I was like, how much? And it was like $200,000 and some to buy that building. We didn't have $200,000 and some, but I talked to the bank, and I said, would that make sense? And they said, well, come up with $45,000 as a down payment, and we'll give you a loan for that. And then you can buy that property because we needed the parking space. Like, that was all woods, and we needed a parking lot. And we needed parking space because everybody was getting mad at us because all our people were parking in all their stuff. I don't think God wanted it as a parking lot because he was like, don't worry, you ain't going to park in their spaces later on. But anyway, we're trying to get $45,000. And I come in here on a Sunday to ask for $45,000 from the family so we could get a down payment to buy the building next door, not even the church, and we didn't even own the church. So what happens if you own that but you don't own the church? Didn't make a lot of sense, y'all, but God said do it, right? And as I'm walking in, I get a call from our worship pastor at the time, and she says, hey, by the way, we need $10,000 for online equipment. Can you ask the church for that? And I was like, no. Like, I know our online was absolutely horrible at the time, but I'm like, I'm asking them for $45,000 to buy property. I'm not going to ask them for $10,000 to update our online audience. Sounds silly, doesn't it? Sounded silly right until I walked up those steps. And the Lord said, you're going to make that number 2. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I walked up and said, hey, guys, we need $45,000. To buy some property. And oh yeah, by the way, We need $10,000 for our online audience that doesn't even show up. So I walked off the stage. A guy met me in the foyer with a check for $10,000 and said the Lord told us to give you money for that a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then like 2 weeks later, we had $45,000 in our account from the rest of the family that God just poured out. I'm like, I don't understand why he tells us to do what to do, but if you actually just respond with the right answer and say yes. See, because it wasn't me. I had to ask, but everybody that was here had to respond too. They had to feel something in their heart. They had to go, all right, Lord, you told me to give 1,000. You told me to give 2,000. You told me to give $10. You told me to give $5. Whatever they were told to give, they gave. And it equaled $45,000. So now, once again, on a Monday, I'm praying. I'm on my face. I'm in here. I got a meeting set up with the guy next door because I'm excited because we're finally going to cut a deal and we're going to buy this property. And I'm like, Lord, don't let me mess this up. Like, this better be all you. And the guy shows up, opens up the blueprints, and he looks at me and he goes, I'm not selling the building. And I was like, dude, you don't know. Like, I can't afford the mortgage if I don't have the building to pay the property. And he's like, I can't sell it because of tax purposes. And I'm like, so the air, once again, gets pulled out of you. And you're like, Lord, why would you tell me to do all this stuff if you weren't going to sell us what we needed? And he said, well, just ask him. So I said, well, man, we didn't need the building anyway. I just needed the property behind it. And he said, you know what? He had already told me no. He goes, I'll sell you the property. I said, how much? And he goes, because it's like an acre and something. He goes, $40,000. Now I can do math. I'm like, $40,000, no mortgage on it. We don't owe anything else. We own the property flat out. I'm like, sold. So we buy the property. We get it. We still don't have, look, I'm not talking about a church that floats with like, $100,000 in the bank waiting for something to happen. We're a church that says we give. Like, we give well above and beyond anything to other things all the time. So just so you know, we don't walk around with a whole bunch of money. At that time, we didn't have any money, so I'm thinking, great, we got the property. Now we got a whole bunch of trees on it, and it needs to become a parking lot. And I meet with a family in the church, and he meets me back there, and I show him the vision, and he goes, well, we'll start next week. And I was like, no, I need an estimate. Like, estimates matter because I can't pay you. I said, I got to go back and ask the family. And he said, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of it. We came in the next week and every tree was gone and Crush and Run was down and we had a parking lot. Because people answer what God puts in their heart. And every time we do this, it seems like we're always, backed in a corner. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, and he just says, do it. And I'm like, we have no resources to do anything. Like, is it possible, Lord, that you really want me to do that? And he's like, yeah, because I don't ever want there to be any question that it wasn't me. Not one question that I didn't have my hands on it the entire time. And we still had to buy this property. I know I'm taking forever today, but I want you to hear this because this is important that you know who we are, why we do what we do, and why we believe the way we believe. Because then we had to buy this property. And the price didn't go down at that point. And we're like, wow, now we still need $790-some thousand to buy this property now that we own that property. And now you go back to the table and we talk to him and we negotiate. And then, because we had put a lot of money into this. We had already replaced air conditioners. We've done a lot of stuff. And Journey came down a little bit. I think they got us down to like $699. They took like $100,000 off, I believe, if my numbers are right. And so we said we would do it for that much. And then we went to the bank, and the bank's like, yeah, you need $80,000 for a down payment. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, doesn't anybody do anything with nothing down anymore? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And you go back to the same well that you think the same well would be dry. And you're like, hey guys, God's moving, right? We need to buy this property so we can reduce the cost and stay here forever for generations and generations and generations, so that when we input into this, man, it's going to affect our kids and our grandkids. And man, we're going to see his kingdom come right here you know, and people start giving, and we raise another $40,000, and I'm like, now what? And we go back, and just happens to be that the bank's like, well, do you own any property? Well, yeah, we own the land behind us. He goes, well, what's that valued at? I said, we paid 40. He goes, cool, that'll work. So if that doesn't answer your question of why God said, go buy the property first. See, if we didn't buy the property first, we would have spent $80,000 on this for a down payment and still not had the property. But God said, let's reverse this. Let me flip the script. Go buy the land first. Because you're going to believe that you're going to get the building. Go buy the land. And I'm going to use the land to make sure you can get the building. That don't even make any sense. That don't make any sense. It's like building a house on somebody else's land and hoping they give it to you. Just go plop up out in those woods. There's 100 acres. I don't know who owns it. Build a house. Maybe they'll give you the 100 acres. That's what that sounds like to me. Right? I'm a business guy. I'm like, whatever. But God says, don't worry, man. And he did it. And we got into this thing. And he used it his way, not our way. Okay? Did it his way. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good. So the online worship, I love my wife. So this is so you understand why they said we need $10,000 for online worship. It wasn't just for online worship. Right after that, we got all that stuff put in. We hired somebody, they came in, they put in all the stuff we need. How long? Like it would, maybe a couple weeks after it gets installed, COVID hits. Everybody's online. Now, come on. Why would God say, ask for 10,000 online presence, and I'm going, our online's fine. Like, I don't watch online. I don't care. I'm here every Sunday. Like, you know what my answer was to people online? Go, man, our online is not good. I'm like, well, then come to church. And don't feel bad if you're not here. Just come when you're here, you know, and we'll fix it. No, he said, buy new stuff. And then 3 weeks after we buy it, man, COVID hits and they shut everything down and everybody's online. And we have a phenomenal online presence. And we're taking care of the family. We're taking care of people all over the world with our online stuff. So you don't make this stuff up. But see, now you know the story. It's like reading the Bible. Now you know the story, but we walked through it. Can I tell you, I wish I had the faith I do now, but this helped me get the faith I have now. Because I'm not shaking. I'm not worried about anything right now. Right? I'm not. I know we're going to have a school. I know we're going to be cool. I know we're going to keep doing cool both ways. Like, we're cool anyway, right? But we're going to stay cool in here. We're not going to be sweating. I know we're going to continue to do what we're doing across the world in Benin. I know we're going to be pouring into Guatemala mission. I know we're going to be doing amazing things. In fact, guess what? I told our students we're going on a mission trip this year. So I'm taking our students to Guatemala this year. Because that's what the Lord said do. So I know if he's showing me these things and all the visions he showed me, why would he shut us down now if he showed me that we had a campus? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep pressing. In fact, I told the guy, if you ever start selling stuff, you better come to me first. It's a huge write-off, man. Give it to a church. But I saw it. He showed me that. You want confirmation on that? Ryan didn't even worship with us at that point. He saw the same thing, but from the other side of the river. And when he came here and I shared that with him, he was like, oh my gosh. He goes, that was yours. Yeah, it was. I know what's going to happen. So I'm going to have complete faith as I'm walking through it. I don't need to know the end of the story. I know the end of the story. And I'm going to believe that way. So that's who we are. That's why I am the way I am. And I'm a little weird in that because I'm not going to back down to stuff. I'm not going to back down to what the enemy is trying to do. I'm not going to back down to what it feels like. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care. You know, don't take this the wrong way, please. I don't care who leaves and who comes. Because the Lord said, just do what I said to do. And I love everybody. I love everybody that's left this church. I absolutely love them. And I will hug them and I will pray for them. There is no hard feelings. None. I have none. I'm good. I've got a clean heart and a pure heart. I'm good with it. I love them all. But I'm ready to go. Like, I can't dwell in this anymore. Like, I'm ready to move on. We're supposed to pioneer stuff. So I don't care what it looks like. If I got to take it down to 5 chairs, we'll do 5 chairs. Y'all can, during worship, you can play, musical chairs and fight for it. I just know who's got our back, right? And that's our story, and that's this family. But y'all are fighting a battle. I know everybody in here has got something going on. And I'm just trying to let you know that if God showed you how to do it, trust him. If God's in it and he's backing you, trust him. But you better be hearing his voice. You better know what it sounds like. But when he speaks, move. It takes action. It takes faith. That whole thing, faith without works is dead. The works is you going, okay, Father, I know what you said. You said walk right. I didn't walk left. I'm going to walk right because you told me to. But I also can't stand still and go, well, you said walk right, but I'm kind of nervous. He said, no, go. Go. So that's a little bit about, I don't even, like I said, this is weird. This started kicking up on Tuesday at prayer. And he just started showing me all this stuff. And then it just, even through last night, praise in the park, just kind of topped it off and put the icing on the cake. And I was like, well, I'm supposed to share a little bit to let people understand the faith we walk in and the faith that I'm walking in. And the faith you need to walk in, because he'll do it. If he said he will, he will. It might not look the way you want it to look, and it might not happen in the time you want it to happen. But man, when his hands are on it, I don't care. Like, I refuse to get beat down about it. I refuse to give up. We're just going to keep going, and he's going to take care of it. But I do that with rest. Can I tell you that? It takes peace and it takes rest. I'm resting in the fact that in the storm, he's sleeping. So if he's sleeping in the storm, I sure enough can sit next to him. I might not be sleeping, but man, I can sit down next to him and rest next. I can lean up on him, like Bubba and Forrest. You lean on me, I lean on you. That's what I feel. I said, Lord, I'm just going to lean on you and let you have control of everything. So there you go. That's a little bit about who we are, what we've been through. And it might be kind of new for this or maybe too soon for this, but for those that are new, just in April, I was no longer the pastor. So March, I was forced to resign for a week. I didn't do anything wrong. But it was one of those trust things. And when I came back from Benin and that happened, I just said, I know what the Lord told me to do. And they said, hey, it's time to resign. What are you going to do? I said, I'll resign. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to start a church in Millbrook because this is where the Lord told me to go. I said, it's just kind of weird because he really showed me this place and he kind of put me here and he showed me all the property. So in my heart, I was like, whatever, Lord, I'm going to be in that building somewhere sometime because I already saw it. So I had complete peace during that whole moment. And that was turmoil. That's turmoil. But you know what? Jules and I, we were completely like, whatever. I was sold. I've been sold out for a long time. So even though it hurt to walk away from a family that I absolutely love, when I signed that piece of paper, I had just as much peace as it was when I was up here preaching. I was like, oh, the Lord's got it. He's got a plan. It's his plan. I'll be back. I didn't know I was going to be back in a week. But God's good. God's good. And not everybody that comes against you is evil. They're just not hearing the way you're hearing. Just doesn't look normal to them. Right? So I believe everything happens for a reason. I really do. And that's why we've lost more of our family. But I love them all. And they're all good people. And they've been part of my life for years. So I honor them. I love them. There ain't nothing. Look. But hey, I don't have to do church with somebody to love them. That's not what the Bible says. It says you love them the way I love you. So it is what it is. I'm going to love them and move on because I know what's happening. I know what he's going to do. So I don't know. I know it's a little all over the place today. But I really believe you need to hear a couple stories. You need to hear first what the Lord said. I'm doing something new. Then you need to hear how David just took out Goliath, because that's just the best story in the Bible. But it totally plays out. My name's David, too, by the way. I'm just letting you know. And my middle name's Paul, which is really weird because none of my family went to church. Didn't play out in my life till I got here, and I was like, man, David Paul, I got two pretty good prophetic names. I said, I think I was supposed to be in ministry. It's the first time I ever said that, was about a year ago. But anyway. Yes, sir. Yeah. Come on. Well, thank you, Lord. I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? Yeah, come on, guys. It's just what God does. I'm just, like I said, man, there's a part in your life, I think, when we shift things, when you transform and understand who you are, when that identity kicks in, you start to trust the true one that can make everything happen. And don't get shook by it. Like, we don't have to get shook by stuff. Like, we don't have to, it doesn't matter. Like there's a lot of things in life that just don't look like the way you think it's supposed to look like and how the world thinks it's supposed to look like. And that's why we don't live in the world and of the world, right? So we're different. We're a different breed, right? So start seeing with your spiritual eyes and not your physical eyes. And trust in the Lord in everything we do. Amen? You guys get something out of this today? I know, man. It's like dumping the family drama on the table. But the good stuff is, man, is God's good all the time. And all the time, God is good. It's just how it is. You might not see it always that way, but he will show up and do what he wants to do if you'll let him. If you'll let him. So Ryan's going to play some music. We're going to, I guess, he's plugging in. Let's just stand to our feet. I just believe we're going to pray a little bit. I'm going to pray you guys out. Don't forget, we have a baby shower. Please go over and say hi and love on the family. I think they got cupcakes over there. Go get some cupcake. At least get a cupcake. Y'all should be hungry by now. All right. Everybody should want a cupcake by now. If I hold you long enough, you'll want more than a cupcake. Can I tell you this too, that if you need prayer over anything you're going through, that we're up here, we'll pray with you. I'll be up here, I'll pray with you. We'll have prayer team members up here. We definitely don't want you walking out the same way you came in. I believe there's strength in prayer, so let us pray with you. Man, I just want to go on. I could share so much stuff, Burr. So many things that God's done. Just not enough time today. So, Father, we love you. I thank you. I thank you that your ways are the right way. I thank you that you're always there. I thank you that your plans are just, man, so perfect. I thank you that you never leave us nor forsake us, that, Lord, that what you want done is going to come to pass. So, Father, we give you permission in this house. I give you permission in this family. Touch every heart in here. Touch everybody in here, Lord. Strengthen their faith. Strengthen their heart. Man, teach them how to trust you with everything. Father, for those that are walking through something right now, give them the faith to step out and come and just give prayer. Because they're not supposed to walk through this together. We're a family for a reason. And trust me, man, if you want to walk through something with somebody, walk through it with somebody who's been walking through some stuff. It changes your perspective. Walk through it with some people that got a different point of view. So, Father, we just love you. We thank you that even in this time, Lord, that you're still moving, you're still grooving, and we absolutely love you. We're so thankful we get to be part of this. I thank you that our story is a story written in history, that you're going to continue to use it, continue to move in it. And this is just the beginning. Thank you for that, Father. We love you. Have your way in everything we do. In Jesus' mighty name. Everybody said amen. Amen. Guys, I love you dearly. If you need prayer, please, we got some powerful prayer warriors up here. Other than that, we'll meet you in the annex. Come on over there and love on a family. And we'll see you next week, guys. We absolutely love you. God bless.